night, my urbanites. How are you all doing? You have entered the Urban Suite with me, Dr. Lisa Lacan.
I'm here.
All right. How are you tonight?
I'm blessed. God is good. God is great all the time.
An open marriage is a marriage or relationship in which both parties agree that each may have sexual relations with others. Good. So we're gonna keep it clean. We're not gonna talk about no dogs tonight.
Well, it sounds like we're talking about dogs already. I mean, I don't understand. You know, it's confusing.
Token, I get it now. I don't get it.
It's confusing. I mean,
is that good? I don't know. Is that good?
Everybody has a right to chime in if they feel like chiming in, right? So
go ahead and chime in the chat.
There's no way in HELL that I would agree to anything that's open.
Absolutely not.
I mean, maybe he doesn't give her what we call a tintinnabulation.
Oh my God, what is that?
Maybe he doesn't make her levitate.
I think we'll need to give her a tintinnabulation tonight.
Well, what's that mean?
Oh my God, what is that?
It means when you reach the point where you hear a little ringing in your ears. You know?
What's that from?
What's that from? You should know what that's from, Miss Elevator. That's an inside joke. Tintinnabulation. You gotta get a tintinnabulation. Make my ears ring. Make my ears pop.
Because 5 seconds gets me about 3.5 orgasms.
You gotta get ladies, you gotta get yourself a tintinnabulation, man.
What are you people doing?
But on a good note, you know, I love my wife.
It's a huge blessing.
I love my husband too.
Why'd you quit? You're just getting to the good stuff.
You are entering the Urban Suite with Dr. Lisa Lacan. Let's talk about urban issues plaguing our community.
That's good to hear.
Let's talk about mental health.
Oh, Lisa. Hello. Welcome, my urbanites. You have entered into the Urban Suite with me, Dr. Lisa Lacan. Welcome. Listen, tonight we have a special guest, Dr. Jennifer Payne Parrish. She's going to be discussing her book, Seeking Science. Let me tell you, my urbanites, I read this book, I'm not exaggerating, in like 2.5 days. I could not put it down. And we're going to go into it. We're going to dive into it because we're talking about her maneuvering the issues of race and womanhood in the field of science. So after these messages, a word from our sponsor and our missing person. We'll be right back. But hold on for a second. I need you all to like, I need you to subscribe, I need you to put a thumbs up because we're growing and it's all because of you. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. right, so we are back with our missing person segment. So this segment is done every time I do a live, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And tonight is no exception. So who do we have tonight? We have Sharon Suzette Rogers. She is from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. She's been missing since October the 18th, 2023. Unfortunately, I don't have my bill, but you North Carolinians, I don't know what you call yourselves. Anyway, I need you to share this information. She's 16 years old. And again, she's missing from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Female, her race is Black. Her complexion is medium. Her height is 5'6". She's 150 pounds. Her hair color is brown. Her hair length, shoulder length, and her eye color is brown. Listen, I need you to listen to this. Sharon was last seen on October the 18th, 2023 in the 3600 block of Baden Road, located off of Thomasville Road, Route 109. Again, she's only 16 years old. This is someone's daughter. This may be someone's sibling. This is definitely someone's loved one, and she's 16 years old. And then there are no circumstances surrounding her disappearance. It's unknown. So please, anyone with information, please contact Winston-Salem Police Department at area code 336-773-7700. I'm not going to repeat that for my Spotify family, my iHeartRadio, my Amazon podcast, all of my audio podcasts. Again, that number is area code 336-773-7700. And you can contact Black and Missing Foundation Incorporated, and that number is 877-97-BAMFI. Let's bring Sharon Suzette Rogers home. All right. So I had the pleasure of reading this wonderful book. I'm telling you, it was fantastic. It's called Seeking Science. And the woman that wrote this book, not only is she the author of this book, but she is also the publisher of this book, Seeking Science, Jennifer Payne Parrish. She is talking about maneuvering the issues of race and womanhood in the field of science. So without further ado, let's bring Jennifer out from beyond the curtain. Yes. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Hello, Dr. Lisa.
How are you?
I'm phenomenal.
I
don't know how I'm going to follow up. First, that little bit between you and your husband. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I was like, why tonight? And then I do have to tell you that I so appreciate the piece that you do every show focusing on missing children of color, Black and brown missing children. So thank you for that. If everyone could do something like that in an opening meeting, whether it be sorority meeting, fraternity meeting, NAACP meeting, whatever it is, that would be really phenomenal and probably change a lot of kids' lives who were able to be found.
Yeah, because, it's so interesting. I started doing this about 2 years ago. There was a young man who was missing from Arizona, and it was like no one was really covering it. And I just was like, you know what? I have to do my little part, whatever it is. Both of us are mothers, and we understand, when our children are not where they're supposed to be, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine if my child were missing and people just poo-pooed it and they didn't care anything about it. And I said, you know what? I have to do this because this is just so important, for me to do. So thank you so very much. And I have to say, switching gears, your lipstick is popping.
Okay.
But beautiful. What color are you wearing? What is that? Like,
It's the lip bar. The lip
Oh,
bar. And the color is Hot Mama.
wow. Now the lip bar black owned, right?
The lip bar is black owned. Remember, they were on, I think, Shark Tank. She got
Yes.
denied.
Yes.
And then she went out on her own, and now you can order it online. I hear they have lip bar shops, and their colors are phenomenal. So yeah,
Oh,
this
beautiful.
is the lip bar.
Now, do you remember we had a scientist on our show? Her name is Kim Tetterton. She's a makeup artist. She's a chemist. And, you know, segueing into what you do as a scientist, let's dig into this book. So before we begin, just tell my audience who may not be familiar with who you are, who is Dr. Jennifer Payne Parrish?
Yeah, you know, I grew up in New York, a little, you know, Black girl interested in science. And I had a, you know, great family support. No one told me I couldn't be a scientist. So that's what I decided to do. And, you know, this book is really about my journey from my very early days in elementary school all the way through to my, you know, current career, you know, through the PhD, everything, just kind of talking about the way I talk about it is there are gatekeepers and guides. And this book is about the gatekeepers and the guides. So in many ways, it's kind of that story of Little Red Riding Hood walking through the forest.
Yeah.
And the wolf and all the other creatures she, you know, experienced along the way to get to the goal. And so that's, you know, what the book is about. And that's who I am. You know, I have come through some ways to get to my goal. And I wanted to share it, and that was my main goal is to share my story.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love the cover of it. Like, where were you, and who took that picture? If you remember, like.
Yeah. So the first picture where I have the beaker in my hand and I'm pouring, that was in the NIH labs when I was doing an internship there. And I talk about that in the book, that was my first real experience kind of advocating for myself on a level, you know, on a more, I would say, kind of professional level. I was still an undergrad student, but that was the first time I got to really say, this is what I want to do. And I was able to do it. Wow. And so that was in the lab of the NIH, Dr. Carlton Godashek's lab. And I was, you know, doing some experiments, and they came in to take some pictures of me. And so that is that. And the other is on the campus of NIH as well. It was a group of us who were all interning over the summer. And so, yeah, it was a sea of others and me.
Right. Yes, absolutely. All right. So let's dig into this. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts, and then Dr. Payne Parrish, she's going to elaborate on what exactly was happening with her, you know, internally, what her thought process was, and how she evolved since that particular incident. So it starts out with her elementary school. And I love how this book is broken up in sections because it sort of compartmentalizes her life based on her journey. So the first step, of course, is elementary school. And this got me from the jump. Typically, when I read a book and the first page grabs me, you know, this book grabbed me, and it says this. I know for me, it started a long time ago. Probably as far back as summer camp at Pratt Institute, when my camp counselor made me sit on the bus during a camp trip because I was one of the only kids who had a prepared lunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken. My dad and I shared a love for KFC. And then further, it reads, my camp counselor explained that it would, quote, probably make the other kids feel bad, end quote, if I ate my KFC in front of them. So I did what any 7 or 8-year-old little Black girl would do. I listened to my teacher and ate my lunch alone on the bus so as not to make anyone else feel like I was better than they were because my father sent me to camp with KFC. Oh, talk about that. Like what?
You know that there are certain stories or certain events in your life that just kind of stay with you,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about them and you think, oh, if only I would have done this, or if only there was another adult to, in the room to advocate, etc. That's one of those, and that's why I started the book off with that, because it's that story that has stayed with me, and I remember the feeling, and I remember the feeling because sometimes in my adult life I've experienced that feeling, right? And as Black women, sometimes we experience that where it's well, even sometimes your family may say it, mine didn't, but I know others have experienced where a family member, don't go showing off, right? Don't go to the family reunion showing off, or you think you're better because you have X, Y, and Z. And sometimes that bleeds into our professional lives, whereas we don't want to speak up at the conference table, right? Because I don't want anybody to think, I know more than they do, or, that I'm trying to outshine anyone. I don't want to outshine my boss or whatever. Instead of just showing up as who you are and what you know, we hide that. And so that was my experience on that bus, that I had to hide because my teacher felt as though the other kids would be damaged because I showed up as my full self with a KFC lunch.
Wow. Isn't that something?
Right.
Now, based on that experience, did that kind of put you in a situation where you kind of grew up like thinking, I can't shine my light and I don't feel comfortable shining my light, so let me just kind of dull it down, or, the expression, dumb myself down in a sense,
No, I think that probably could have happened, and maybe if I was a different person, it would have happened, but that's just not who I am. And so while I was obedient and I stayed on the bus and ate my KFC, I also, left that experience thinking, how silly, right? How, if only I could have spoken up. And that's really what I felt like, oh, I wish I could have spoken up and said, no, I want to eat with the other kids.
Right.
But I didn't. And that's the other point. I didn't really know how to advocate for myself at that, young age of 7. I really, I was really relying on the advocacy of adults.
Right.
And here it is, there was an adult that was not an advocate. And so yeah, it didn't in any way kind of squash my dreams or my understanding of who I was, because I had a family who told me who I was every day.
And that's so important. So important. It's so interesting. I remember coming to Greater Venture when I was younger, because I'm from DC. So we came up here with my aunt and everything in New Jersey. And back in the day when I grew up in DC, it was really a lot of, Blacks, the Black community was really large, educators, Black principal, Black school. So it was kind of like foreign to me when I traveled up here to New Jersey, and I was real young. My cousin and I got on a ride at the amusement park, and I will never forget this biker guy. He was like, I'm not getting on this ride. Too many, he said the N word, too many on this ride. And I took it as not like, sort of like how you're saying, I didn't take it as a negative thing. I took it like, oh my gosh, my skin color can control this grown man, what he does. Like the power that I have, the power that my skin color has, that this guy, this adult guy wanted to get on this ride, but I controlled him just my very existence.
Interesting. That's a great perspective.
I was like, oh my God. And I thank God shielded me from the other type of way of thinking, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be horrible. I don't like my black skin. I don't.
Right.
But I saw it as like, I can control my environment based on how I look, which is interesting. And that's one thing that, stayed with me. And then moving on, this was another piece of who Jennifer is that really captured my heart, and I saw her as a little girl when she was experiencing this. I spent a whole morning sitting in the basement in a dark room the size of a small walk-in closet, lit only by the sun peeking in through a small window. The room had small white shelves from the floor to the ceiling as if it were a storage room or pantry. I sat in the dim room, staring at the shelves and the contents on each shelf. Cookies and crackers on the top shelves, tape, paper, and composition notebooks on the lower shelves. Tell your audience what was happening with that.
Yeah, so that was my experience in elementary school. And I went to a private elementary school. So, I grew up in New York, as I said. So at that time, the public schools were not that great. And so, my parents really, worked hard to put us into private school. And so that was my second grade class where, I was punished for talking in class. And my punishment was that I couldn't go on the school trip. And instead, I was led into a small room, closet, and what you would call like a pantry today, or utility closet. And the only saving grace was that it had a window in it, and it was all white. So, and it had a lot of other things in it, right, that I can kind of look at and daydream about. And I sat in there for hours for the school day, until they came back from the trip. But there was another little boy in class who didn't look like me. And he also was, found talking in class, but I saw him get off the school bus. Right? And so that experience, it's not just, sitting in that closet, which was horrific for any school to do. And this was, a Catholic school in Brooklyn. It was horrific. And today, probably they would be brought up on some kind of charges.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it was also the injustice. So not just the injustice of being kind of, put in a cellar, but the injustice of not being treated fairly. The punishment was much more severe than it should have been. And then, the other kid wasn't punished at all. And so just imagine what that does to a young, second grader.
Right.
There are so many, it becomes very clear that there were real injustices.
Right.
Yeah.
That, it's so interesting because, you were in Brooklyn. And typically people think, you're in the North, those issues like that, racial issues, tension, that they don't happen, but actually they do. And quite often, like I said, my first experience where I was called that was in New Jersey, in the North.
Yeah.
And, those little things mean a lot. Like when you carry it on, and sometimes you wish, especially bad things like that, you wish you could take out your mind's eye, like, oh my gosh, I wish I could unlearn or unremember, erase the memory of that situation. But, it happened. And I think because of who you are and because of your family upbringing, you use that as fuel. And then fast forward, you went to Brooklyn Tech High School.
Yes.
So you went to Brooklyn Tech. So prior to Brooklyn Tech, you must have gotten into a love of science, I guess. How did that spark? What?
It's funny because you test into, at that time, you test into the three major schools in New York. At that time, it was Brooklyn Tech, Bronx Science, and Stuyvesant. And when I got into Brooklyn Tech, I really didn't have any idea that I was going to pursue science, or even that I was going to, use any of the tracks, right, to focus on science. But it was more about, I'm going to a specialized high school that really focuses on preparing, young students for the future, whatever that may be. It could have been architecture, because Brooklyn Tech was, big in architecture, etc. But when I got in my freshman year, I took a biology class, and that changed everything, because I loved everything about biology. I mean, everything. Even some people don't like dissecting and all. I loved everything about it. And I really excelled at it in a way that it wasn't as though I didn't have to study or prepare, but it was, I wanted to know more. So it felt like I wasn't studying, but I was. I wanted to know more, so I read the next chapter. I wanted to know more, so I went to the, to the teacher and asked questions. I wanted to know more, so I stayed after class. So it was this kind of just yearning to understand more. And I didn't think about it.
Oh, so I would have sat next to you in the biology class. What'd you get for number 8?
Yes. Yeah. And somebody was actually telling my son like a couple of weeks ago or months ago, I can't remember. Oh my God, your mother made us crazy in class, because I was asking all the questions. I was, staying late, and the teacher stay late, and it was just like, oh, she was getting on our nerves.
And then at Brooklyn Tech, this is an incident that happened. So there was a guest, I guess, and there was like a conference or whatever, and you said, quote, "That is exactly what I want to be, a chemical engineer." I said to him, your teacher, as I leaned against the stage where the speakers had just stood. The teacher, he didn't look directly at me. Instead, he looked out into the crowd that was now moving around the auditorium with heightened anxiety as each student tried to catch the panelists who most interest them. Well, this is what the teacher said, quote, "Well, you should think about going to a 2-year program at a local community college first to make sure it's for you." He responded in a very calm and disengaged tone, still looking past me into the crowd.
Yeah.
Now, what was that?
It happens to us all, right? I mean, it was high school day, like career day.
Right, yes.
At my high school. And I saw someone who presented their career in such a way that it was inspiring. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. Everything she said, it just resonated with me. And so I went to my guidance counselor. And what I'm finding now, and it's funny, Lisa, I mean, it's really, really funny. I'm finding now that there are a lot of people who have experienced this kind of interaction with their guidance counselor. People have told me, I wanted to go to a HBCU, and my guidance counselor said, why are you wasting yourself? Or, I really want to pursue, whatever it may be. And the guidance counselor was discouraging them. And so it's interesting, because when that happened to me, I really, it threw me. Like, I was a high school senior, and I had already kind of in my head planned out that I was going to be a scientist. And at that time it was a chemical engineer. And so it threw me, because this was a person who was supposed to be, again, my advocate right? As a guidance counselor,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the guidance counselor.
Right.
Is supposed to be my advocate. But not only that, this was a person who wrote my recommendation letter. So it was like, wait a minute. What did you say in the recommendation letter? Right. And it really threw me. And at some point really made me question what I was going to do. And thank goodness, like I said, you need the guides in your life. And it was my mother, when I went home and said, okay, Mom, I talked to the guidance counselor, and he said I should probably look at a 2-year college, first. And my mother, who was, went back to school and got her bachelor's degree when we were young kids, got a master's degree and was working on a PhD herself in social work. So she knew, what it would take, and she knew it was possible. And as soon as I told her that, she was like, Jennifer, what are you talking about? Does this man even have a PhD? No. Is he a chemical engineer? That's what she said. Is he a chemical engineer? Like Black moms. And I said, I almost didn't even know how to answer her.
Right.
She was like, no. So what does he know? So almost like, why are you listening to this? And that really helped me. And it, to this day, I kind of leverage the information based on the experience of that person. Right. And so, it was kind of like, forget him. And I really did. I forgot him.
Wow. That's something, because, it's, again, it makes a difference, because growing up in DC, like I said, we had African-American principals, educators. My counselor, actually, I found out about Hampton through my guidance counselor, because she asked us, she had a meeting with us individually, and she was like, Lisa, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I was like in love with this boy, and like, oh my gosh. And she was like, Lisa, look at where you are. I was like number 6 in my class. Now we only had 68 students, like number 6 in my class, but still, I'm like, I had no idea. And she said, meet me here tomorrow, early in the morning. So I met her at the school. She dropped me off at Howard, and I found out about Hampton through the counselor. And I say that to say it is so important. I'm telling you, it is so important. The guidance counselors, the schools, the principal, the administrator, where you are raised, where you go to school, and also something that you said, the support of your mother and father, your family support and your structure. It was very strong. Yes. And that is what is needed. Like, oh my gosh, I just can't. Oh, thank God for your parents, and then from there, you went to Hampton. And it says your mom was very, I guess, instrumental in you actually going to Hampton. Talk about that.
Lisa, I'm sure you have heard this before, where, and I have to say that thank God for your guidance counselor to take you to an HBCU, and she is partly responsible for the Dr. Lisa we see today.
Yes.
Right. Because that was a trajectory. So my mother at that point, by the time I got to Hampton, and I was kind of touring schools, I was between Hampton and Howard. Right. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted to go to a HBCU. It was between Hampton and Howard. My mother stepped foot on the campus of Hampton University, and that was it.
Wow.
That was it. So, meanwhile, I'm like, okay, Mom, next week we're going to Howard. And she said, oh, no. I already paid your tuition here. So and this is on high school day. I was like, what?
We said, come again?
Right. Wait a minute. So that was it. That was, and she knew, as I gave my kids a choice. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to go, right? Where do you see yourselves? But the funny thing is, my mother saw me on at Hampton, and I was still kind of, like you said, right? Oh, I don't know.
Right.
And my mother was like, okay, let's make this decision.
Right. Exactly. That is something else. And then from Hampton, you met your husband through the Hampton connection, because he also is an alum of Hampton University. Yes. And I think that is just so beautiful. And then the story that you say, in the book, you all read it. I'm not going to read that. You have to read it. You have to get the book. And you can get the book at, let's see, what is it?
Hold on. But also remind everybody that we are doing a giveaway, though, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So they can actually send in a email. Our subscribers to YouTube can send in.
That's right. The first person that emails me to urban2sforchange@gmail.com, you will get a free copy of this book.
Well, that's awesome.
Yes, free copy of this book. And then your experience at Hampton, tell us a little bit about that in the science department. And
it really is, and the entire book again is really about gatekeepers and guides. And by the time I got to Hampton, I had just the best guides. And pretty much all throughout my life, right? One of the chapters is mothers and mentors,
right?
Because your mother or your parents are usually your first mentors, and then those who come after really kind of help to shape you. And so for me at Hampton, being in the science department, I had a professor who led the PhD or science track, if you will. There was an MD track and a scientific track. And her name was Dr. Johnny Jones. And she had already experienced a lot of challenges as a, Black woman in science. At the time when she went to school, she used to tell us stories like she had to hide her experiments. She had to take her experiments home. Right. Just crazy stuff. And so, but she knew what it would take to get to the PhD. And so she was not only our advocate and our guide, she was our cheerleader. Wow. She was our disciplinarian, because it was actually 4 of us in the PhD program, but I write about the 3 of us who kind of walked through it together. And she was just that rock that was there for us, who really did not take any slack, no excuses. You're in a summer program every summer, you're doing some type of research. And, we would go to scientific conferences and we would dress in, blue and gray suits. And this is in college. Wow. And we would walk through the scientific conference and people would look like, who are they? And then we would present and, present data that we did, completed at the NIH or Princeton, and she was just that kind of mentor who really showed you what you could be if you worked hard.
Wow. Now this is a quote, and you can elaborate on this quote. I looked at your undergraduate record, and I know you were a very good student at Hampton, but an A at Hampton is really a C here. Who said that? And let's bring that into some context.
Yeah. So those are the graduate school years.
Right.
And Dr. Lisa, you know about graduate school, right? Those are the graduate school years. I started at Northwestern, and I had there was a lab director who I was doing a rotation in his lab, and he really made it difficult for me. he asked me to take additional courses in addition to the graduate courses I was already taking. So imagine, you've gone through a PhD program. You have a certain number of required courses, and then some professor asks you to take, his course, right, for credit. And so now instead of 8 classes, you have 9, 10 classes. It was just ridiculous. And he was struggling. Let's put it like that. He was struggling with the fact that I was there and that I wasn't apologizing for being there.
Right.
And that I was going to work to stay there. And so his comments were to discourage me, but also to bully me. Right.
Wow.
I mean, that's something as a professor, to say something like that to a student, that's, it was really to bully me.
Right.
And I just decided, you know what? I know that I can do this work, but I also know that he is not my champion. This is not the right fit for me.
Wow.
And I'm not going to fight that when I also have to fight to stay in a program, and I have to, work to, do well in my classes. You can't fight everything all at the same time. Right. And so, but yeah, that was that experience.
And then you transferred from that school.
Right, to Albert Einstein.
Right, to Albert Einstein.
Yeah. I transferred to Albert Einstein. It was in New York. And the one thing, and this is one thing I want to really tell, especially, anyone, but especially young students, right, that we go for that name. Oh, the Harvard. Oh, whatever it is. We go for that name. And that's what I did, right? It's like, oh, no, Western. Yeah. But they didn't have the real program I was interested in, right? I knew I was interested in neuroscience. They didn't really have a focus in neuroscience on that campus. And so, but I went for the name, right? The kind of the prestige of it.
Right.
But what I found was that it wasn't a fit for me. And it was also, in many ways, it was a hostile environment. And so when I started to look at where I could go from there, I started to look at, instead of the name of the school, I looked at the programs and what they could offer and who I wanted to work with. Yeah. And in many ways, you have to interview the school the same way the school, needs to interview you. Right. And so I did that. And I found a school and a lab where I could thrive. And that's what I did.
And then fast forward to Albert Einstein. I'm going to read this. This is very interesting. A week before I was to defend, I noticed a group of women professors huddled in the hallway near my lab. After passing them a few times, I noticed that at least 2 of the 3 were on my thesis committee. I kept doing what I was doing and tried to pay less attention to them. But it seemed like every time I walked by, they stopped talking. I thought maybe they were talking about me bringing my months-old child with me to the lab, but I had a feeling it was something deeper and more sinister than that. Right. Then one of them called me over. My stomach sank. What's about that?
So yeah, and I would say again, Dr. Lisa, we as Black women, we know that there are times when we have that superwoman syndrome. I can do it all, and I can do it by myself. I don't need anybody to help me. And sometimes we have to do it by ourselves because no one will help us.
Right.
But in this situation, I really, I had gotten to the point where I was writing my thesis, and I thought, oh, okay, I write my thesis and I'll hand it in. Right. That's really what I thought. I'll write my thesis, I'll hand it in. No one was reviewing my thesis, no one on my committee, my my lab director, no one. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just kept writing, right? Hundreds of pages.
Oh.
But at the same time, I had, my son was like maybe a month, 2 months old. I mean, a baby. So I really was in a place where I thought I could I can do it all. But I did not know what I was facing. Right. And also I didn't have the right support to say at that time, oh, no, you need to have someone review your thesis. This is the process. This is what it looks like. No one.
Wow.
And so that was a failure, right, of the system. And so I blame both, right? But for me, it was a lesson in you do not do anything alone, right? You don't. Those things that we accomplish, we don't accomplish them because we did it alone. We accomplished it because somebody was watching our kid while we were right. And for me, it was my mother, right? Watching my son while my husband worked and while I was, trying to finish my thesis. It was the 3 women huddled in that circle who said, okay, you're going to come to my lab and do your experiments. You're going to go to the other professor's lab and she'll review your thesis chapter, every 2 weeks. I mean, it was those women who helped me. And so, no, I didn't do it alone.
Wow.
But I really tried.
And then you had to go back to the drawing board. Did you have to rewrite everything over or just?
I had to rewrite some chapters over.
Okay.
I had to do a couple of experiments over. I mean, the good thing about it is that, when my PhD is in pathology with a focus on neuroscience. And at that time, this is almost 30 years ago, maybe it is 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot known about Alzheimer's disease, etc. And so my work was really some of the early work on inflammation in Alzheimer's disease. And I had a novel theory. And so that theory has kind of evolved into, where we are today in the field of AD, of Alzheimer's disease. So it was easy to write because it was mine. I pretty much had kind of created this space and this theory, this hypothesis. So it was really easy to write. And there was a lot of, I would say, kind of developing theory at that time. And so there was a lot of information in the literature about what I was working on in other disease states, et cetera. So I didn't have to write the whole thing over. It was a good thesis. It just wasn't in the format of thesis should be in, et cetera. Because I didn't know.
Wow, isn't that something? And so, okay, so you're a trailblazer.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
you are. You are a trailblazer. Accept that. That's right. Go ahead. I wish I had my bell. I don't have my bell down here. I got to
hit your bell.
I know. Oh my gosh. So yes, I mean that is. I love that. Oh my gosh, like that was a long time ago. That was
a long time ago.
Yeah, that really was. Oh my goodness. And then you have your PhD, and then after you graduate, you come into the world of work.
Yes.
Look, and based on what you wrote, it felt like people didn't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
Explain that when I say that, like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing, right? That we think the gatekeepers are all the other people, right? And what I experienced is there were some gatekeepers that looked like me, who were Black women, who were like, no, no, you can't come in. You can't come in because of how they felt about who they were. right? And what they had accomplished. And, sometimes you can walk in the room and it can be threatening to other people, and that's okay. That's okay, because that's something they have to work out, right? That's their issue. That's their challenge. That's their, right? They own it. They have to own it. I can't own it. And so, I had a couple of experiences where, I tried to kind of move into the academic world, now with this PhD, as, professor. And I had one manager who told me, this is in an academic institution, who told me that it was not acceptable to put the PhD behind your name on the door plate. Right. And so, at that point, I was like a grown woman, right? Like at 20, I was, I got my PhD when I was 29. So I was like, really? That's odd. And of course, I went around and saw all of the nameplates of professor, so-and-so, PhD, et cetera, et cetera. And this is at a medical institution. And I realized, this chick is, is delusional. And really it's about how she feels about sharing an office with a 29-year-old Black girl who has a PhD in pathology. So yeah.
And then from that you became an entrepreneur.
I did. Not on purpose. People become entrepreneurs on purpose, right? But it wasn't on purpose. It was, and I say that jokingly. I mean, it was on purpose because my purpose was to really help develop everything that I had gone through from, like I said, elementary school, middle school, etc. I really kind of looked back at that and said, oh, if only someone had advocated for me in this scenario or in this school. I think what I really wanted to do, I know what I really wanted to do was I wanted to develop that space and environment for other students, for those who are coming behind me. And so I started a science center. It started off as a science center where kids could come and learn about science experiments and really learn scientific theory, because I really believe that if you think like a scientist, if you're analytical, if you can really look at data, look at information and use that to make decisions, you can leverage that in every part of your life.
Absolutely.
Right. And so that's what I did for 16 years. Back and forth, right, in working in the pharma industry, and then my night job was the science center until it became a full tutorial center, because people were bringing their kids and saying, the science is great, but my kid is struggling in math. Can you help? And so it became a full tutorial center, after, the first couple of years.
Wow. So I see Marvis Brown is on. Marvis is another scientist. I think Marvis, I can't remember what she majored in, biology or something like that. So she's in a doctorate program at Seton Hall University right now. So all of this is like, and the thing with Marvis, I believe she was probably maybe one of the only Black females, through her program, because she went through Connecticut, Southern State, Marvis? I can't remember. Is it Southern State that she went to? And there were very few at the school, during the time that she went there. So she definitely persevered and everything. That's awesome. Now you're in pharma, the world of pharma. How did you transition from being an entrepreneur to pharma? What was your aha moment?
So there really was no aha moment. I tried, like I said, that first academic position I had at a medical university, and it just wasn't a right fit for me. And I had a friend who said, listen, you just, Southern Connecticut State, that's what Marvis just said. But I had a friend who said, listen, there's this company that's working in Alzheimer's, and that's what you do. You just got your, PhD, focusing on an Alzheimer's model. Why don't you consider it? And I did, and it was a perfect fit. And so, I quickly transitioned from academia to the industry, within, a couple of years of completing my PhD, and I haven't looked back. So even all of the work that I did with the Science Center was kind of like, what I had to do when I wasn't working.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah. And now currently today, you're still in the industry.
I'm still in the industry. I will be. It's a great, it really is an environment where, I'm able to leverage my scientific expertise, but then also working with, others who are passionate about, really improving the lives of people who suffer with disease. And so for me, it's a great fit, and I'm able to advocate for, others who are, moving through the pharma space, both on the patient side as well as other staff, etc. So for me, it's a great place.
Wonderful. All right, so Dr. Payne Parrish, we're getting ready to wrap up. Any last final words of encouragement for our audience? Go.
Yeah, I want to leave everyone with the understanding that whatever you envision, you can accomplish. And I know we hear that all the time, but you definitely need guides. And I say, look for the guides, because there are worlds. The world is full of gatekeepers, but the guides are there too. And some of the guides may look like you, and some of the guides may not.
That's right.
And so find the guides, find those people who advocate for you and who speak about you when you're not in the room, in support of you. And really look for those people to help you along your way. Because the thing about guides is they don't necessarily have to have done what you want to do. They just know how to open some doors to let you through.
Yeah.
They just have the key. That's it. Yes. They don't necessarily, right? So so look for the guides.
Yes. Miss Roberta says, great interview. Go, Jen. Yes. Now, where can people find the book? We have blackbeakerbooks.com.
Right. Go to blackbeakerbooks.com. It includes all of the events that are happening, book signings, etc. And you can also order your book on that site.
Wow. Now you have these books in Africa right now, and I see.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
That is awesome. So there is a woman who read the book and was so inspired. I think for the next 4 or 5 days, she contacted me to send her, another book. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe she's giving these out as gifts, etc. She brought them on a trip to Africa.
Oh.
And gifted them to the school there.
Oh.
Yeah.
It is well deserving. I'm telling you, this book, Seeking Science, go out and read it. Get it. How much does it cost?
$16.95, under $20.
$16.95. Now I know my urbanites, y'all can afford $16.95. Y'all go to the restaurants, you buy your coffee, you buy your liquor. You can get get this. Come on now, $16.95. Now for my Spotify people, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all of my audio podcasts, that's Black Beaker. Well, hold on for a second. We're not on that one. Hide that. Hold on for a second. We're now on no sexual public website now. Who put that right there? Hold on. Now let's get rid of that. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Black Beaker Books. BLACK LACKBEAKER books, BOOKS.com, blackbeakerbooks.com. $16.95. Purchase several, gift them. Listen, Christmas is coming up.
That's right.
Christmas is coming up. This is a good book. It is a fantastic read. Get it, pick it up, gift it to someone. And on that note, thank you so very much, Dr. Jennifer Payne Parrish, for entering into the Urban Suite.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, enjoy your evening. Listen, you guys, I'm telling you, this book is a must read. It is a must read. I'm going to order one. Yes, I want you to sign it. Yes, Dr. Jennifer Payne Parrish, get your Shopee ready so people can sign. So you can sign for them so people can get that book, that autographed copy. Listen, wasn't that a great interview, Curtis?
Yes, it was. I think, you know what? If Dr. Parrish is still, I did actually have one more question though, because does she think it's any different now? Like with the gatekeeping for the younger girls to get into science and stuff. Is it any better now? She came out 30 years ago. Is it, huh?
She's still here. You can add her.
Yeah, did you hear my question, Dr. Parrish?
Look, I took my lipstick off.
That's why I asked her for. She was getting ready.
I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't know if it's that different, because I think what is different is that there are more support networks, right? Because you have all this STEM, Black girl in STEM, Black students in STEM, etc. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more focus on it, and there are, because of that, there are more support networks, right, available. But I think that the gatekeepers are still there.
Of course, absolutely.
Right, and you will encounter them. Mm-hmm. It's just now there are different resources that young people have, because there's so much focus on STEM, and really STEM making sure it's diversified.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I think social media has kind of helped that as well. Mm-hmm. Like even on Facebook, there's a page like Finish PhD. So it's really encouraging people to, go and do it. And people are like, I'm struggling. Does anyone have any help with this? And it's very practical. People, give one another, encouraging words, because at that point in time, when you're going through the process, you definitely need to be encouraged, because it's not an easy task, and then for you with science, like the natural sciences, that's different than my social science, it's totally different. The arena, the environment, the people, it's like, so yeah, totally different. So,
and the numbers show it, right? That we still have a lot of work to do to level the playing field when it comes to Black people in the space of science. So it's great that we have all these programs focused on STEM. And we probably need more. But in addition to that, we definitely need to ensure that there's a pathway, right, to the PhD.
Yes.
So that it's not just, kind of doing internships and that kind of mid-level success, but really, pushing students to pursue careers in science. And, for most careers in science, you do need a PhD.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Miss or Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. I'm going to take the rest of my lipstick off now. Don't call me back.
All right. Thank you, my Urbanites. This has been wonderful. Of course, I'm here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Urban Suite. with me, Dr. Lisa Lacan, where you laugh, learn, cry, and grow. And on that note, Molly, take us away. And basically within this tour, there is a mute challenge, okay? So she has a song called Energy. And on that song, she says, and everybody goes mute. Look around, everybody else mute. The whole audience, the whole place, like thousands of people, 10,000 people just got quiet. Look around, it's me and my crew. And it lasted for a couple of seconds. And I think it was organically done. So you have a couple of people that are diehard the Beehive. And then you have some people that are tag-alongs and they just go and they don't understand protocol. We love you, Beyonce! And then some people are just very rebellious. And some people just want to be seen. She failed her city. She failed the stadium. She failed, and she failed the queen bee.
You failure.
Why you gotta be the one that the loudest person in here?
A lot of people like attention.
Just seeing if you guys pay any attention to me.
She wanted to take the attention from Beyonce.
Guess your plan was kind of an epic fail, huh?
All right, so we're going to get hit.